I said, hey, 90% of our clients who come to us to initiate divorce are women. And I've never understood why that may be. And I never asked our clients, why are you filing for divorce? I never want to open that door. But the ones who do decide to bring that up, at the outset, will say something about them not being happy.
When they look at marriage, that success equals longevity. But no, at the end of the day, are they happy? My marriage was a success.
Yeah.
I look at it as like a curriculum when you're in college or high school, right? You're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, you're creating. And I was able to create with Corey some beautiful, amazing children. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that curriculum, and at the end, there's a graduation, there's a celebration. So that's basically, how I'm looking at it now. And I feel like people when they look at marriage, that success equals longevity. But no, at the end of the day, are they happy?
We all know there's infidelity and stuff like that, but a lot of these women are just not happy. They can't really put their finger on it. It's more of, he's a great provider, he's a great husband, he's a great father, but I'm just not happy. And they're filing for divorce. They're going to make this big step to go through divorce, and divorce is so rampant. I can't believe how many cases we handle on a monthly basis.
Sad. It's almost a midlife crisis situation. They're, age 40 to 50 years old. Kids are getting a little bit older, late teens, mid to late teens. They're just not happy with life the way it is. And they've grown apart from the spouse. I think, as in any relationship, what you put in, you get out. It happens in men. And I do see it in women where they just don't feel like they're happy, and that there should be more to this marriage. And there is more to marriage, I think, if the time is spent together, working in.
I knew when I really started to focus on my happiness. I feel like women, we tend to focus on everybody else's happiness. Making sure that everybody else is okay. Love yourself, know your value, know your worth. And then all of a sudden there's this awakening, and it's not easy. It's a hard journey, but at the end of the day, I feel like it is so, so worth it.
I'm guilty too. We all get caught up in life. We're busy. We're working. We're trying to pay our bills. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to, raise our kids, and we all have a lot on our plates, right? And the thing that usually goes first is, okay, well, I know my wife loves me, my husband loves me. I don't need to show him all the time, but
they'll even say that. I love my husband, but I'm not happy.
The critical thing here, and this goes both ways, is communication. Mm-hmm. If the wife wants to go to the beach, she should say, honey, can we go to the beach? I really want just a time for a couple hours with you at the beach. Can we do that? If you say no, then that's a problem. But she's done her part in communicating.
God never intended for marriage to be temporary. What's going on? Greetings to you all. I hope that you're feeling blessed and highly favored on today. Now, as you saw in the clips at the very beginning of this segment, this is one of many. So the alarming trends that I'm seeing as of today. Now, divorce has always been a staple in the American community, but not as rampant as it has been in recent years. I can recall when I was coming up, I oftentimes seen strong families, strong households, to where the man was a leader of his household, and these homes flourished. Now, of course, every household had their problems. Oftentimes with my dad being a pastor, I would hear the counseling sessions or the results of the counseling sessions. I'd be in the back seat just eavesdropping, him and my mama discussing everything, just to kind of reviewing the counsel that they had given based on scripture, and just praying for the best for these particular couples. Now, the new trend almost is, as soon as unhappiness settles in, or as soon as, to me, the spark leaves, this is almost a free pass to go ahead and divorce your spouse. And I'm trying to figure out where this came from, to where it's just so easy, to where vows before the Lord literally mean nothing. Vows that you've made between you, another person, in the face of the Lord, they literally mean nothing. And it's that easy to just cast it aside, and it's amazing to me how we as a people can justify the behavior that we know is wrong. Here in her case, and I guess, women are somewhat notorious for this because they have to make themselves feel better about what has transpired, and no one wants to feel like a failure, of course. And in her particular case, as you can see, to me, it looks like she really believes this BS that's coming out of her mouth. Comparing marriage to a graduation. Comparing marriage to a graduation, to a school setting to where you learn, you grow, and you have a celebration at the end. You get a nice little hat, you turn your tassel to the side, and you move on to your next partner. This is absolutely ridiculous. And just the way this particular clip of her has been prodded around social media, it lets me know that an abundance of women are in agreement with these statements. And I more so say women because, as you saw also in the other clip that was played at the beginning of this segment, the gentleman stated that majority of the individuals that are coming into his office to file for divorce are the women. So this lets me know that the men are still having that innate sense to want to go ahead and keep this thing pushing, and to work through these particular issues. But it's the women who are saying to themselves, why waste my youth? Why waste years? When I can go ahead and be out here and pursuing happiness with another person. So my question on today is, what has transpired in today's times to where it is this easy to go ahead and throw a life away? Because typically, once you have a husband or a wife or a union between the two of you, typically there's a family that comes into play with this, and you have children, you begin to build a life together, your money is tied in with each other's. And so typically, or traditionally rather, this has kept unions together, at least just to save face. They've remain together for the sake of the children, as to not to tear the household apart and have to split all of the belongings. Traditionally, this has been a messy situation, and so oftentimes couples would almost be compelled to work it out, to stick together, because it behooved them to do so, or it was in their best interest to do so. And I think it's no coincidence with us getting or drifting more and more away from biblical culture, that it has become to be more and more easy to actually separate yourself, even if it means divorce. And of course, we being the people that we are, we come up with grand rationalizations as to why this is acceptable, why this is okay, and why this, oh my God, is even natural for someone to divorce, to just break the vows that they made between themselves and God. Now, I want to start here. Just want to come with some brief scripture, and then we'll tie things up. We're not going to stay here all day, but this very thing, I actually want to go back to the root of divorce, where it started, and how marriage was initially intended by God. Because you see, the Pharisees actually came to Jesus, and of course we're not going to get into the whole backstory of everything of who the Pharisees and Sadducees were. If you don't know, then of course I would prompt you to go ahead and look them up, as far as the many confrontations that they had with the Messiah. But if you are familiar or if you're not, then you're going to become familiar after listening to this particular teaching. Divorce was never ordained by the Lord. It was simply tolerated. This was a man-made creation by Moses, or an admittance by Moses to go ahead and allow divorce throughout the camps. And if you know anything about Moses, you know that he loved the people. He had a tremendous heart for the people. He was actually with them for 40 years, of course, taking them out of Egypt and leading them up to the promised land. But sometimes he got so wrapped up with the people to where it could cause frustration, even to the point where he himself wasn't able to enter in to Canaan because of his disobedience. He got so frustrated with the people. They were crying out, one day tired of eating manna, they wanted meat, they wanted water, this, that, and the third, just the spirit of complaining. And he got frustrated with this, and he ended up hitting the rock instead of speaking to it for it to bring forth water as the Lord instructed. And so that's a different story. But I just wanted to kind of lean into sometimes the frustrations of a leader, even one as great as Moses, can face. And so the main thing is he allowed divorce, or the only grounds for divorce would be that of adultery. Now, going back or fast forwarding to the to where we see Jesus actually being approached by the Pharisees, again with them trying to twist him up, trip him up. But the Lord was always slick. He was always witty with his ability to speak, and of course, rightfully so. He was the chosen one. He was the Messiah. And so, let's take a look here and see how he handles the topic of divorce. So we'll be coming out of Matthew chapter 19, starting at verse 3. Now the Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. They said unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away, doth commit adultery. We clearly see here that the Pharisees came and thought they had something with Jesus, because obviously Moses is held in high esteem in the Jewish culture. And so with that, they thought they were going to get him to actually go against Moses and say that he was wrong in what he did. Now, as far as with this, I see somewhat of the same issues of what we're going through on today. And we clearly see here that a few parts that I want to point to directly is that two are actually became one flesh. The Lord says that once you become married, you are no longer two different people. You are one. And so with this being said, we know that the Lord intended marriage for good. Going back even further than this, he states that he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and even before that, or prior to that, when it was just Adam presiding over the whole world, he looked down upon Adam and said it is not good for man to be alone, and he gave him a worthy helper, or a helpmeet, and his woman, which was Eve. Initially her name was Adam, until Adam renamed her Eve, or the mother of creation. Now, getting back to this particular passage, again, we see here that clearly it was never God's intent for what he joined as one flesh for it to be separated. The Lord doesn't make any mistakes. And this brings into play, of course, you have the permissive will of the Lord, and you have his divine will. And, as far as with that, which we'll get into some of the causes as to, what's going on. And a lot of people are missing God and just marrying whomever they desire to marry. So, of course, we have that as an issue. But we'll get to that momentarily. But again, I just wanted to point out a few things here. He says, of course, in the beginning, I like that as well, that he made them male and female. He said that for this cause a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcements and to put her away? He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts. Again, Moses tolerated. This was never ordained by the Lord as far as with divorce. So it wasn't intended to be a graduation. You just, you get with one person, then you graduate on to the next one. That's never the way in which the Lord intended for it to be. Moses, because the hardness of your heart suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. Again, from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, the Lord takes it a step further. He says, if you do put away your wife, I tell you that you're actually committing fornication. And the man who takes your who remarries your wife, they're indulging in fornication. And so, this is just an insight as to how the Lord views things. Marriage was intended to be forever. Amen. And so now going to and the verse that he's actually alluding to is Deuteronomy 24 verses 1 through 4. And just for time's sake, I'll go ahead and go through that. Y'all know I get to the scriptures fast. So we'll go ahead and I'll read that really quickly. So when a man have taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and giveth it in her hand, and sendeth her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled, for that is an abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. And of course it goes on from there, but we clearly just see Moses giving instructions like he oftentimes did. The Old Testament is just a beautiful book, as far as when you go through there and you see how, the many things that the Lord did, or even if you look to see the leadership of how Moses interacted with the people and how he, got them out of Egypt and how he presided over them. It's a beautiful thing to see. But of course, according to what we see the Messiah or Jesus say, Yahshua, we see here clearly that this was not intended to be so. The Lord never intended for what he joined as one to be separated. He never intended that to be the case. But of course, Moses permitted the people to do so because of the hardness of their hearts. And so that's that. Now moving on, I just want to say a couple other things before we actually get out of here on today. But first off, marriage is a great thing because the Lord has commissioned it. When you are, of course, divinely with the person that has been ordained to you by the Most High, then I also want to take a look at the actual wedding vows, because this is some powerful stuff that individuals are saying in these ceremonies. These grand ceremonies that people are taking on. Listen how we cast these aside, but listen first to what's being said. And again, people, to me, with me being the man that I am, I just love words. I love the meaning behind words. They have impact and power because, of course, we know life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so, as far as with this is just so beautiful to me to hear these words, and it's so terrible that they actually mean nothing to these individuals who are graduating from these marriages. Let's take a look here. So, of course, in Baptist wedding vows, there are several here, but one of the most traditional, it says, will you have this person to be your wife or husband? Will you love her, comfort, and keep her, and forsaking all others remain true to her, as long as you both shall live? Man, that's beautiful. Let me say that one more time. Will you have this person to be your wife? Well, let me flip it for the women, since that's who more so we're dealing with. Will you have this man to be your husband? Will you love him, comfort him, and keep him, forsaking all others to remain true to him, as long as you both shall live? That doesn't sound like anything temporary to me. That doesn't sound like a graduation, like, hey, at the end of these couple years, big dog, after we have some kids and all this, that, and the third, I'm finna go ahead and forsake you and go for somebody else. It clearly says here, across the board, we're seeing a theme here as far as it being forever, something that's supposed to be of a solid foundation. Now, after they proceed to say I will, the exchange of vows is typically one line said by both partners. I take thee to be my wife or husband, and before God and these witnesses I promise to be faithful, to be a faithful and true husband or wife. Then, of course, the ring exchange follows along with the following words, and this is probably my favorite part. With this ring I thee wed, and all my worldly goods I thee endow, in sickness and in health, in poverty or in wealth, till death do us part. Lord, that's beautiful right there. With this ring I thee wed, and all my worldly goods I thee endow, in sickness and in health, in poverty or in wealth, till death do us part. My goodness, that's just a beautiful thing right there, you know. And it's heartbreaking. You know, clearly we see that this woman is full of BS. This Tia Mowry, man. And my purpose in presenting this to the people is because, despite what popular culture is telling you, it's not just a thing for you to just cast aside as soon as the times get a little rough. You know, if you are really with this person divinely appointed to you by the Most High, hard times are going to happen for everyone, but it is not something that you just throw on the ground as if it's trash just because you're not happy. Just because unhappiness is set in, or you have a feeling of unhappiness, it's no reason to just throw aside a whole marriage. And, you know, think about how this is affecting the children, how this is affecting the counterpart that you're with. The only thing that we can see as selfish individuals is what we want. And we have been tricked or duped by the enemy into believing that nothing else matters except for our own personal happiness. My God, if I had to put it in the nutshell as to what's going on, it's my belief that the enemy has done a prolific job of tainting what the Lord has intended for good. He has utterly distorted the roles first and foremost. No successful union or organization can properly function without declared and clearly understood roles. And of course, in today's time, they saying the woman should play the man role, both of y'all could be leaders, etc. All type foolishness. That's a different story for another day. But secondly, with man and woman mostly operating in a carnal state of mind, there's so much physical beauty that's in abundance everywhere that you turn. You look on your phone, TikTok, Instagram, you go to the store, you look on TV, it's just beauty, aesthetic beauty everywhere that you turn. That subconsciously, the union of one man and one woman is cast aside, and the desire for multiple partners, lust, sex, and excitement is intensified. So individuals naturally start moving apart from one another. What you have is no longer of value. You're looking, and I think that's where this unhappiness is setting in at on both sides. Now, very few successful examples to look towards. This is another big thing. Like I mentioned in the beginning, oftentimes we used to see strong families, but gone are the days of grandma and grandpa being married, mother and father having a successful marriage and growing old together. This just isn't the case. And if you don't have something to refer to or to look upon, then you've now become to think that it's normal just to divorce. Now, communication skills are also terrible, and no accountability whatsoever being taken by either party. So when it gets tough, people are chasing a feeling. They presume that the love is gone when the feeling leaves, and they take the easy route. Of course, that's part of this victim society as well. But lastly, people are inherently selfish, and as the old adage states, people are only as faithful as their options. So is marriage, in conclusion, is marriage and successful relationships as we know them to be traditionally, are they doomed? There's always an exception to the rule, and people will always be in search of love, affection, and companionship. But in my opinion, traditional relationships may in fact be in trouble, unless the Lord does something. And of course, there's always going to be a remnant, if you are out there pursuing love, to each his own. And my biggest thing is, if I could give out any type of advice, because this isn't any counseling or anything, I just wanted to address certain topics and issues, as to what's going on or what I feel is going on. But take it serious. Of course, I know it's the cool thing to be selfish, to be about yourself nowadays, to pursue your own personal happiness, but the Lord intended it to be so. Take the commitment of marriage seriously. Take the courting process seriously before you just stop just doing anything, just jumping into any type of relationship just because you don't want to be by yourself. Take these things seriously and go before the Lord. Seek Him. Or if you believe in life and the consciousness and all that, ask the divine, whoever you pray to, is this the right person for me? Ask for confirmation, ask for an answer, as far as to this, because there is to be happiness in the union of a man and a woman. It was never intended, again, how we see here, for it to be separated, But that's my take on everything. Of course, I hope that you learned something on today. And as always, definitely feel free to comment, like the material, share it, man. Get this material out there. Some married couple out there needs to hear this. Somebody somewhere is thinking of getting a divorce. They're thinking of casting in the towel because of how they feel. Some woman is heading into a divorce attorney's office tomorrow to go ahead and end everything because she doesn't feel, even though he's a good provider, even though he's a good husband, I just don't feel in love anymore. So let me go ahead and cast everything to the side. Somebody needs to hear this, man. So go ahead and like it, get this content out there. I definitely deliver this with love. Much love to everyone under the sound of my voice. And of course, until next time, certainly be blessed.